we all have those things that we've been meaning to do for years. Things that we always think will happen soon, and then time goes on and we go, wait, it's been how long? Whoops. But then we get them done, and it's very satisfying and very good to do so. I recently had one of those things myself. So I had lunch with Archbishop Beltran a few weeks ago, and it was a delightful time. But I'd been meaning to do it for like 13 years. I was at Camp Guadalupe one time. I was still just a seminarian, and I almost literally ran into him in one of the doorways, and on a whim said, "Hey, Archbishop, can we have lunch someday?" Which those who know me won't be surprised at that kind of sudden jump to an idea. But he said, yeah, sure. Just kind of surprised and being nice. It took 13 years, but finally I emailed his secretary and said, can I have lunch? And we did. We had a great lunch. It was interesting to talk with him, and I was happy for him to get to chat without him having the weight of the responsibility of being the active archbishop. And we've probably all seen people who have retired, and we see hopefully get to see the difference it makes in lives. Like, oh yes, I can take life in at a different pace now than I did before. So, pray for all those in admin. Pray for Archbishop Coakley right now, because it is a weighty thing to be archbishop. But after the end of our conversation with Archbishop Beltran, after he and I talked for a while, again, lovely conversation. He asked about Weatherford and, said that he was praying for us, and cited about campus ministry and those sorts of things. As I was leaving, I asked, well, Archbishop, what can I pray for you for? And he paused for a minute and he said, pray that I may be a good archbishop. And I did. I took that, and of course, Bishop, I'll pray for that. Have a good day. But as I was reflecting, as I walked back to my car, I said, I thought how profound it is that even though he's been retired for 12 years or so, I forget, as long as we've had Archbishop Coakley, is how long Archbishop Beltran has been retired, that even after all that time, and having not have been responsible, if you will, as an archbishop in quite a long time, he still, as his first thought of a prayer request was that he may be a good archbishop, which really illustrated to me the difference, or the beautiful continuation of his ministry as a successor of the apostles. It's something that did not cease when he gave up the office. By contrast, if you talk to, I've heard about Anglican bishops or priests, for example, after they give up the office, if they retire or whatever from their office as such and such, archbishop or whatever in an Anglican context, they just go back to being doctor or mister or whatever. They don't retain the title of archbishop. And I don't know about their theology, but in a general sense, a non-Catholic minister, they have the title and the responsibility, but it's, again, not an expert, but the general sense is that they are a layperson who has a special job, which is different from a Catholic sacramental ordination sense, where even if the office, even if the use of the office ceases in retirement or something like that, the faculties, if you will, the priestly power, to put it just in a tangible sense, doesn't go away. Archbishop Beltran is still a bishop, whether he's functioning as the head of a diocese or not. I am still a priest if, God forbid, no worries about this, but if God forbid I somehow walked away from being from priestly ministry, no plans, don't worry about me, but still, I would still be a priest whether I liked it or not, right? Ordination, in a Catholic sense, is on the same level of permanence as baptism or confirmation. Once you are baptized in a Trinitarian formula, you're baptized forever and always. Once you're confirmed, you are confirmed forever and always. Your soul has been transposed into be something fundamentally different than it was before. That is a powerful symbol and a really comforting symbol of Christ's presence in the world through the church. The sacraments do the same thing. The fact that the Eucharist is the body and blood of Christ, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether anyone's in church or not, there is something transcendent and different and, if you will, powerful there that is fundamentally beyond what you have in other places. I will be first in line to defend the principle that where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am among them, which is what a Protestant church would be when they gather on Sunday. They're praying together. Christ is present there in that way. But the sacramental reality of a Catholic minister and the sacraments done is fundamentally of a different order. Today in the gospel, we hear about, it's one of the versions of the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor, blessed are the hungry, blessed are those who are suffering. And they all come with a consolation on the other side. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are those who are hungry, they will be satisfied. Blessed are those who are weeping, they will laugh. Blessed are those when people hate you, because you can rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven. There's these other side of them. But that only is possible if God really has broken into the world. As Paul says in the second reading, if Christ is not raised from the dead, then our faith is in vain. But if he is raised from the dead, then that makes all the difference, right? If Jesus did a miraculous, divine, transcendent, supernatural, if you will, thing, then that makes everything make sense. If Jesus really has broken into the world, then it makes sense that being poor actually can turn out to be a virtue. If Jesus hasn't risen from the dead, then being poor just sucks. If Jesus hasn't risen from the dead, then being hungry, yeah, you're just hungry. If Jesus hasn't risen from the dead, then when people hate you, well, I guess you're just not a good person. No one likes you. But because God has come into the world and done a new thing, then these negative things become positive. Now, there's plenty of people out there who have a low vision of what the resurrection meant. There are some who would say, the resurrection, in air quotes, it was just, an idea. Jesus was, quote, resurrected in their hearts. But he didn't, actually raise from the dead. If Jesus didn't actually rise from the dead, if a divine and incredible transcendent thing didn't happen, then I'm wasting my time. If Jesus is just a philosopher who said some nice stuff and kind of gave us wisdom for life, then there's a whole bunch of other wisdom that's a lot easier to live with than being a Christian. But if Jesus then rose from the dead, that makes everything actually make sense. That's how we really benefit, or how we really live out what the prophet Jeremiah says. Blessed are those who trust in the Lord. They will be like a tree planted beside the flowing waters. The stretch out its roots, it has no fear when the heat comes, its leaves stay green. If God really is breaking into the world and doing stuff, then we can trust in him and he really will make a difference. That's the grand claim, the scandalous claim of being a Christian, especially of the Catholic, is that God continues to break into the world and do things that are beyond the physical, that are not according to physical explanation. All of the sacraments like that, and ordination being one of them. So whenever Archbishop Beltran prayed that he may be a good archbishop, even though he doesn't have the responsibility in the grand sense of being an archbishop anymore, his ordination, his pastoral role in a role of prayer and just being who he was ordained to be continues. And that's very beautiful, and I think should give us great confidence in our faith. That God doesn't just leave us to have kind of a philosophical idea of religion. There's it's a good thing to do, and kind of we gather together and we talk about it. But he breaks into our lives and does things, permanent things, that we would never be able to do on our own. And that's what makes sense of the Beatitudes. It only being poor in spirit, or being poor leading to the kingdom of God being yours, being hungry, being satisfied, weeping and laughing, people hating you, giving you reward in heaven, only makes sense, only is possible if God actually has broken into the world and changed the situation. If he has risen from the dead, truly, really, actually, then it makes sense. So let us be very intentional to take this seriously and to embrace that transcendent spiritual reality, that our faith is much more than just a gathering that we do and some friends that we have and a liturgy that we go to, but rather it is God breaking into the world in a divine way that couldn't happen by any other means. He has done it because he loves us, and he gives us the grace to live it out and so change our lives, to change poverty into joy, hunger into satisfaction, weeping into laughter, being hated into reward in heaven. That only works because God has risen from the dead and really broken into our world.